What is up, you sexy beasts? It's a Friday afternoon here on the Gold Coast. Hope you're well. Wherever you are in the world, hope you are super well. Got my little boy Benji's little Nikes here. Been thinking heaps about my boy Benji. So yeah, it's nice to have him right there next to me. Today, I wanted to have a chat about Mr. James Fitzgerald, aka OPT, and Dave Castro's recent Instagram post. So if you're not aware, James Fitzgerald, he was the very first CrossFit Games champion back in 2007. Back then, there was no qualification process. All you had to do is get to Aromas, get to the ranch, and you're in. If you could make it there, you could compete. And there were 3 events, only 3 events over 2 days. Can you believe that? Event number 1 was out of the hopper. So the hopper is like the thing they turn and then pick out a ball, and each ball represents a certain movement or a certain rep range. And that first workout was a 1K row followed by 5 rounds of 25 pull-ups and 7 push jerks or 7 shoulder to overheads. So what's that? That's 125 pull-ups and then whatever 7 times 5 is. 30? My maths is rubbish. 35 shoulder to overhead. The weight was 60 kgs for the men and I believe 42.5 kgs for the ladies. So it's like 135 pounds for the men, 95 pounds for the ladies. That was workout number 1. Workout number 2 was a roughly a 5K trail run. So that was the first day of competition. And then on the last day of competition, day number 2, the CrossFit total, which is 1 rep max back squat, 1 rep max deadlift, 1 rep max shoulder press, right? And that was the whole CrossFit Games. Imagine that, just turning up at the ranch and having a crack. Anyway, James Fitzgerald, he won it that year, became the very first CrossFit Games champion. Now James, prior to the CrossFit Games, had years and years of experience as a coach, strength and conditioning coach. He is someone who really values research, education. He's a real academic and really values high-level coaching. So he had all that experience prior to coming in to the CrossFit Games. Now he was on the Sevan podcast just recently. By the way, just want to give a massive shout out to Sevan and Brian. You guys are killing it, eh? Like just interview after interview after interview. Every time I open YouTube, it feels like there's 3 or 4 new videos from the Sevan podcast. So the hustle is real, boys. Well done. Keep it up. Anyway, James was on their podcast, and it was a great podcast, by the way. I listened to the whole thing. It was really cool, and it's a shame that they only got to this topic that we're about to discuss today. They only got to this topic towards the very end of the podcast. I really hope they get James back on to talk about this in more detail. But essentially, what James said on the podcast was that CrossFit is not individualized. Now, you have to understand where he comes from. He runs a company called OPEX. It's a educational company where they train coaches. It's like a coaching system, I guess. And they also have their very own licensing model. So as a gym, you can license the OPEX methodology, I guess, and use their programming, use their training for your coaches. And from what I can understand, I don't know a whole lot about OPEX, but it's very individualized, as in, you work one-on-one with the client. It's very, very individualized. So you got to understand that it comes from that perspective, So I want to throw the question out there to you guys. Do you think that CrossFit is individualized? And to me, I think that there's such a variety in what a CrossFit gym looks like in 2021 that you might walk into one CrossFit gym and go, yes, I would call this individualized training. Actually, CrossFit is done in a group setting, right? Generally speaking, sure, there's people like myself that do CrossFit at home. But generally speaking, if you think about CrossFit, you're thinking about a group class. So just that definition on its own, it's a group class, tells you that it's not individualized. Okay, so already I think there's merit in what James is saying based on the fact that CrossFit is done in a group setting. But I know that CrossFit gyms exist, and Sevan actually alludes to this at HQ, where even though the program is set for the whole class, the coaches are so skillful and have the ability to really not only scale, because I understand that scaling is not individualization of programming, because it's not. Just scaling a movement doesn't mean that the original program that was actually set out, was made for that person in the first place. CrossFit programming is for general physical preparedness. In my mind, that is the goal of the CrossFit program is to get you generally prepared for life, to help you to be a generalist. So again, by that definition, in my mind, it's not very specific, it's not very individualized. But like I was saying, there are CrossFit gyms that have quality coaches that are actually able to really modify and change the workout to suit an individual. But I would still argue that, the program for that day, whatever the Metcon or the WOD is for that day, it wasn't designed with any one person in mind, right? It was designed for a group of people to do. And so I don't think, saying that CrossFit is not individualized, I don't think that takes away any merit from CrossFit. It doesn't take away how legit it is or how amazing it is or how many lives it's impacting. And it doesn't take away how appropriate it is for the majority of the population, in my mind. So I tend to lean towards what James is saying, that yes, CrossFit is not individualized. I think like individual programming is literally talking to one person, finding out their wants, their needs, their limitations, their injuries, and designing a program for Bob, for Susie. Like the program is written for them based on where they're at and what their next step should be in their kind of fitness journey. I'm sorry, but the CrossFit program just isn't that. By saying that, I think there is a lot of benefits that there are a lot of benefits that come when training in a group environment that you miss out on and you don't get when you train individually. And I think we can romanticize the idea of coaching someone for a lifetime. I just don't think that's a reality. Like I've done personal training before, and I would say the longest I've worked with one client, I'm gonna say maybe 6 years, maybe 7 years with one client every week, 2 or 3 sessions a week. But eventually you part ways for whatever reason. So, I mean, James didn't say this directly in the interview, but it kind of, it sounded to me like he was saying that their goal is to work with someone and journey with someone, for a lifetime. I think that's probably over romanticized, and that I don't think that's a reality. I don't think that's something that happens between a trainer and an individual. But I'd like to be proven wrong. If you know of someone who's stuck with their personal trainer for years on end, for their lifetime, that's amazing. So yeah, what do you think? Would you call CrossFit individualized training, or was it just group training that is scaled and modified so that the person can actually do the programming for the day? Does that make sense? Because I do think there are CrossFit gyms who are very good at making it as personalized as possible, but even then you could probably argue that it wasn't written for that person and therefore it's not individualized. I think you also have to remember that OPEX and James, I think they work with clients, again I could be wrong here, but clients that want to compete in a specific sport. So yeah, I think a lot of their clients or a lot of their athletes, their goals are very different to the average human being who probably doesn't need individualized programming. That's what I would say. I would say that most average human beings don't need individualized programming. They need a well-balanced GPP programming, general population GPP, general physical preparedness program, a well thought out, balanced program that is then modified and scaled in a group environment. I think most people will thrive in that environment. And we're talking very nitty gritty stuff here. Like just if we step right back to just a much broader view, just any movement, any fitness is great. So if someone's doing something, whether you're doing Peloton, whether you're doing Pilates, whether you're doing whatever, movement's good, exercise is good. So we're all on the same team. I think we're just kind of splitting hairs at this point. By saying that, I must commend Dave Castro for kind of, speaking up. CrossFit is his thing, it's his baby. And so Dave actually reposted just a short clip of that interview and basically said that I have been doing CrossFit for almost 20 years and have individualized my own programming almost that entire time. That's great, Dave, but that's not what the average CrossFit gym looks like. It's a group of 20 people in the class. I've seen CrossFit affiliates individualize training for clients, Sure, I know a lot of CrossFit affiliates offer one-on-one training, and maybe they individualize, or they do individualize the program. That is called personal training or personal coaching. Again, when I think about CrossFit, and I think when most people think about CrossFit, they think the class, the group environment, right? I've seen CrossFit trainers individualized training for world-class athletes in ball sports, individualized sports. I don't doubt any of that. I've seen countless examples of individualized training. This is almost not even worth highlighting, but since he's trying to change the narrative around what CrossFit is to suit his self-serving agenda, it must be addressed. CrossFit is constantly varied, functional movements, executed high intensity. Anyway, I respect Dave for speaking up for CrossFit. I think that's the right thing to do. But again, you know, I think when it comes to James, his whole business is around personalized coaching. I remember how offended I got as a CrossFit gym owner when someone told me they were doing CrossFit at their normal gym or at another functional training facility that wasn't a CrossFit affiliate. I got so offended because in my mind I was like, no, you can only do CrossFit at a CrossFit affiliate. Unless you're paying the affiliation fee, unless the word CrossFit's on your building, you're not doing CrossFit. I think that's the same thing. He's so passionate about individualized training. That is his whole business. That is his thing. So for someone to then say that CrossFit is individualized, it's just, I guess, discredits what he's doing. So I think he's just passionate about that. And Dave's passionate about CrossFit and how it is individualized. What do you guys think? Drop me a comment. I just wanted to bring this up today. I really enjoyed that interview. I think James is a great dude, and I look forward to hopefully another interview where he can dive a bit deeper into his thought process. But I highly recommend it. Go and watch the whole thing, and yeah, have a fantastic weekend. Stay sexy. Keep roaring love. See you soon. Bye. I'm still here. Just want to hang out for a little bit longer. What's that, 12 minutes and 28? Oh no, that's long enough. See ya.